stocking up on deer repellents. What, do they put them on sale someplace so that you can do that? Boy, they're expensive. I know somebody who made her own, and but she had a kitchen set up out in the garage because it stunk. I can't remember all that she was using, but no, thank you. No, I have not noticed many deer around here this winter. Quite often we see them once in a while further back in the subdivision. I think we're in a place right where our property is. I think we're hemmed in enough by water on both sides that we don't get as much traffic through here as the other areas do. But we know they're in the yard. We've seen their tracks. I've seen the nibbling that they do. But I've never actually seen the deer in our yard. We saw 8, maybe 12, 13 houses away at one point. But usually it's just 1 or 2. Yeah, and they'll go for those snowdrops, Gail says. They do like snowdrops. Hey, Margie Carroll. Hey, Barbara, I was just reading that, being reminded that you use a reciprocating saw too. I was looking for the picture of Sue Gruber's reciprocating saw to put in for people for what do they cut their stuff down with in the springtime. Sue Gruber says, I cut down shrubs with a reciprocating saw, and when I went looking for that, I found Barb Sapirsky saying, I like my reciprocating saw for pruning too. So you can chime in and tell us. It seems a little awkward. You'll have to see the picture of Sue's and tell me whether you've got one that's the same, that the handle is the motor, the drive is the same size, because it seems kind of big, like it'd be awkward to get into some places. But a little bit awkward is okay if it makes it so that you can actually cut something that you couldn't cut otherwise, huh? 17 deer at one time. Well, I bet they've destroyed the arborvitae hedge. My only real acceptance of people wrapping burlap around their arborvitaes is when they've got deer, just to try to keep them from eating the arborvitae over the winter. Because they don't generally eat it in the summertime. It's not a first order food. It's one that is there in the winter, and so they turn to it. 17 deer. A couple of deer are pretty to watch. 17 deer are scary. Oh, a neighbor, well, a friend, one of Sonia's good friends, and doesn't live too far from us here, had her little dog beaten badly by a deer. I have learned to respect all animals over my lifetime, but I never really thought about just how much damage a deer can do striking a little dog with her hooves. But she felt that little dog had gotten too close to where her fawn was laying and just lit into the dog. Poor little guy. Let's see who else is here. If anybody's got any questions, I only had one thing come up that I didn't put into pictures in the rest of the talk, and that was wet leaves. There it is. It's about wet leaves. My neighbor, the leaves are still all over the lawn. A lot of times they just didn't come down until late. This year was a bad one for it. And they were wondering, should they rake them now? If you need something to do, I mean, that is something to do. Raking wet leaves is never fun, but it is something to do, and you could do it. But right now, they're not killing things now, but if those wet leaves are still there about the middle to the end of March, that's when the lawn starts trying to grow, and if there is a smothering layer on top of them, especially a wet smothering layer, we're going to end up with fungus problems and dead patches in the lawn. So even if you can rough them up so that they start drying, let the wind dry. It's nice that today the wind really kicked in here, and with the snow gone, the wind is going to dry those leaves to a certain extent and blow them into the neighbor's yard, who will all be real appreciative of us sending us their leaves. Let's see, how can I get this to give us a little bit more light? Just knocked my branch down that I was going to show somebody. So no questions? Nothing anybody's got? Stephen is making his way here. He may not make it in time today. His brother's been in the hospital, and we've been splitting coverage. You know, it was Steve's Steve's time there started at noon today. I was there this morning, and at noon we found out that they would move him out of ICU to his own room. And so Steve stayed to make sure he got settled in the new room. And he might not get here in time. We shall see. It is always interesting to figure these things out. And somehow they just keep getting figured out. I have always liked the line in the movie Shakespeare in Love, where they ask the theater owner, how could that possibly happen? And he'll say, it's a mystery. Yeah. So, things happen that you don't expect to happen, and you have to fit them in, and it's a mystery. You just fit them in. Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody's hand is up. So there's a question. Go right ahead.
I should know this already.
Pardon me?
Me,
Margie?
Yeah, I'm on twice.
Right. But did you have a question?
Yes. Okay. I should know this already, but about the wet leaves. Okay,
Yes.
they're all laying in my garden on the soil, but they're flat and they're not gone. Do I rake those up? Or do
Probably
I
not. If it's a single layer of leaves, it's not a real thick layer of wet leaves, they're going to dry off in time, and the plants can push up through them. Grass, unfortunately, can't really push up. It doesn't have the physical shape and forms to push up through things. It just flattens down. Grass is a top dog plant in terms of beating other plants when it gets into root competition, but it's not so good at growing up under things, not at all. So I wouldn't worry about them in your garden at all. But on the lawns are not going to be happy like that. I just noticed
after this rain, it was like a deluge. It just came, like, flooded the garden, came running down the sidewalk.
Yeah, when there's still frozen places.
But the leaves stayed.
Right. Well, yeah, because they're still icy and on their bottom layer probably if you picked them up. When was I picking up leaves? Oh, when I was cutting some the pine that fell, there were wet leaves of tree leaves, and there were also leaves of geranium underneath, and they were still icy underneath the logs and underneath the first layer of leaves. But there's still ice in the ground, especially where it's packed down, like our paths are still frozen. I can dig outside the paths, but I can't dig on the paths. In any place where there's still some ice, the water isn't soaking in there, it's just running and puddling. Yeah, not the best time of year to be out poking around. Yeah, I suppose that's a consideration in terms of raking the leaves. Unless you know you've got good drainage, I wouldn't be walking around on the lawn if you didn't have to. Most people don't do a lot of trafficking on their lawn, so there's not packed down places, but Steve and I do. There's regular paths around the outside edge of our lawn where we walk to fill the feeders and stuff, and where I often shovel in the winter, and because the snow is shallower, there's not as much cover there. It definitely freezes there. Okay, all right, so, and that's our native heuchera laying down there. It is evergreen, but it's a little ragged this year. December was a bit tough on it. Can't seem to change my screen. There we go. I love it that this day it's so cold out there, and yet the moss is blooming. I think the one is called Soldiers. Has little tiny red filaments that stand up on it. British Soldiers. Anyway, it blooms in January and February, and it's cool to go out there and say it's winter out here, and here's this plant saying, yeah, but it's my time. It's my time to be doing something. Actually, this is lichen and moss together. I don't think I have any other pictures in here. Nope. Let's see what time it is. Just about time. Oh, I better turn my phone sound off. My phone has been beeping up a storm. And unbeknownst to me, and certainly not something that I arranged, my phone decided to talk to my computer. So every time I sit down here to work, if a message comes in, a text for instance, it beeps on my computer as well as on my phone. Even if my phone isn't right here, even if my phone is over in the kitchen or whatever. And I never asked it to do that. It's kind of like these AI things. When I turn on Zoom, it's always telling me, AI is ready for you. And I've got a little box that says, don't remind me again. And I keep clicking it, but it keeps coming back up again because, boy, they're just determined they're going to make you use AI. I can't turn off my sound. The family has been bemoaning grammar and English and spelling today because the kids have been texting about their uncle who's been in the hospital. And it's hard not to comment on things like great, spelled Grate, when you're in middle school. Sonia sees it a lot in her students. She said it's just soul crushing to be reading so many things that when she looks at them, she can tell they were AI generated. They're not her students' writing. She said that misspellings and especially wrong punctuation actually makes her feel better now because she knows that it's not AI if the punctuation is wrong. Um, Thank goodness for little favors. I see a hand up. Hi, Connie. Go ahead. Turn on your or unmute yourself and go ahead and talk. You'll have to hit your computer microphone though. There you
Are
go.
we there?
Yep, you are here.
Okay, great. No, I just started to leave you a note about the phone funnies because there's a lot of talk right now on security sites for the internet about if you've updated the operating systems of your phones anytime recently.
Uh-huh.
The newer updates have set all your security settings back to defaults. So your little nonsense of your thing recognizing and letting you signaling you when a message comes through or a text or something like that comes through, that's all tied to the update.
Ah,
So you literally have to, and I have a suspicion that this is going to be an ongoing process because now every time, and you know how fast updates come through,
oh yeah, I do.
every time something gets updated now, the stinkers have it set so that defaults get launched. So they're hoping you miss a lot of this stuff and don't go back and change it because it's more stuff for them to track you by
Yeah,
or to aggravate you by or whatever.
yeah.
But
And
that's what it is.
given how many different apps there are on the phone, it's just too much to keep up with. We had a problem 2 weeks ago. We think we've worked it out now with our Zoom. Some of you may have been here when we were here for one meeting. I couldn't hear anybody on my computer. Could hear them on Steve,
Yeah.
could hear on my computer. And we finally figured it out when we realized that there was one time when we were down at Indiana, we did a talk for the Indiana University Extension, and we put our computer and plugged it into their system to project. And on the way home, I was working on the computer while Steve was driving, and I freaked out. Everything was wrong. I thought everything was gone. We ended up driving up to where a young friend who is was one of our programmer helpers to his house and said, Stu, help us out. And it turned out that the college's computer system had taken our computer and reorganized it in order to
There
fit.
you go.
And the same thing had happened again, as it turned out. I was speaking for Penn State a little over 2 weeks ago. And it was ever since I realized it's ever since I talked to Penn State, I haven't been able to hear. So we had to reload the apps and set things back up again. And then they work just fine. But you don't know otherwise. We normal people just don't know.
No, we technology has crossed the Rubicon.
Yeah.
We are all in trouble now.
And I'll tell you what, my kids had figured stuff out, and they still, for much of the things that happen, can tell us, "Oh, here, try this, try this." But their kids are not getting any of that. Their kids are just learning YouTube and Instagram and whatever. They're not learning the same steps. They never
No.
had to fire up a computer to understand about starting things up and shutting things down. Yeah, we will be slaves to our machines. I
Yeah,
remember.
well, my husband won't touch them, and I think he's the smartest one in the room.
It's hard to get by without them, though. I'll tell you. We got our first cell phone. I thought we got our first cell phones when we couldn't find payphones reliably anymore when we were on the road to call each
Yeah.
other. But Sonia reminded me the other day when I was in the hospital with Steve's brother. She said, that's when we got your first cell phone, when we wanted to talk to you when Dad was in the hospital. I went, oh, that's right. It wasn't that. It was the first cell phone. Yeah, little flip phone. I like that phone. It was so much simpler. Has anybody else ever noticed that when you take your phone out and you go to settings and you scroll through, it says Wi-Fi, it says internet, it says cellular, it says sounds, it says haptics, it says 25 things that you scroll through before you get to phone. I mean, here it is. It's your phone. But you have to go through 30 different things before you get to settings for your phone because it's not primarily a phone anymore. It is all these other things. Okay, enough of that. Enough of that. We hear about it all day long. Everybody here. Well, hey, Debbie, you are here. Looking to see if there's any names I don't know. No, we're okay. Oh, I don't know Vicky. So I think most people know though to keep your use the chat as much as you can, but raise your hand if you want to talk. And there's few enough of us here, and we prefer to hear voices so we can just see your hand up and let you talk. And you know where the chat is. Try to chat to everybody. Don't chat just to me because I'm hardly watching everybody, let alone watching to me. And the raise your hand control is either in the reactions menu or it might be in the participants menu, but someplace there's a raise your hand control that you can click on. So welcome to our Free4All Friday. This is the 67th time that we're welcoming you to celebrate growing and cultivate problem solving. Can't believe it's February 20th already. I always think I have plenty of time in the winter to get things done, and suddenly it's the end of February. It's the end of winter. We're coming to you from gardenatc.org. I'm Janet McConovich. Stephen Nicola he'll be late if he manages to get here in time. We had a little bit of a run-in today with scheduling. That's us. And you know where our website is, I hope. I hope you tell people about it and tell them that they can go to the Fridays page anytime. There's a link there all the time about where we are and what we're doing. There's also how come I didn't update this page? I thought I updated this one. There's also now a book club page, and you're welcome to join us for book club. We've been having fun sitting and talking about a book, reading about the bees now, a novel based in a beehive. But we've put up a lot of thousands of the things that we've written, and we have more to put up. That this way we can write new stuff. Most of our new stuff we're writing on video kind of thing now. But the link is always there. You don't need to register. You don't need to tell us that you're going to be there. Just click the link and come on. If you're on our list, if you have emailed to us and said put us on your subscription list, we put you on our mail list. We used to send a newsletter every week, and I haven't found all the places where it says that on our website yet. We don't send a newsletter anymore. We've been putting all our time into putting these things together. And granted that sometimes I'm sure when I'm here you think it couldn't have taken long to put that together, but it usually does take some time. Look at this guy. Is a Highland cool animal or what? Any questions that anybody's brought with them today? If there are, then either put them in the chat or raise your hand. I see a hand up, or at least I see the little symbol that says there's a hand up. Who would that be? Uh-oh. But I don't. Usually it pops to the top of the list. Oh, there it is. Karen, go ahead. You'll have to click your microphone. I can ask you to unmute, but I can't actually unmute you. So you click your microphone to turn it back on. Take that little red bar off of it.
There.
There
It's
she
on.
goes. Yeah.
Hello, my name's Karen.
Hi, Karen.
And I was going through catalogs today looking for a ground cover, well, two actually, maybe, because I need one for a sunny, dry area and a shady, dry area.
And do you have any requirements other than that cover the ground?
Well, deer resistant,
Okay.
so probably some blooms, and
And when you say dry, is it possible that you can give it water while you're getting it established, or is it?
oh yes, I always water when I'm getting a plant established for a year.
Okay. My best bet for for the shady, drier area is going to be the native ginger or Brunnera, big leaf forget-me-not, Brunnera macrophylla, just a straight green leafed type. Or there was a picture of it just a little while ago, our native Heuchera villosa. Not any of the hybrids, the native one. And that
How do
would,
you spell that?
it's Heuchera. Heuchera.
Oh, okay.
It's
Yeah,
Heuchera
complete.
villosa. Villosa. That's our native. It's not red or yellow or any of those colorful things that they've bred into it. It's a green leafed, big leaf thing, blooms quite late, like middle of August each year, and is just wonderful in drier areas. And in the sunny, dry areas, I generally go with the ground cover sedums in a place like that, especially sedum spurium. What's sedum spurium called? Dragon's blood sedum. There's a red version of it. There's also a green version of it. Or sedum kamchaticum. It's sedum kamchaticum. I usually go with those when it's really dry. The times could do well for you, but there's some other requirements for the time, especially really good drainage, especially in the wintertime, that may or may not make it. What else do we do in the... There's a great ground cover bed not too far from us, maybe 5 miles away, that we've driven past for 40 years, that I thought was going to give up the ghost a long time ago, and it's just lamb's ear. It's just lamb's ear, and that lamb's ear has been there for 40 years. It's not solid. It's more a bunch of it here and a bunch of it there and a bunch of it there, and that the bunches may kind of move around a little bit because lamb's ear does get older and the daughter plants grow better than the stuff in the middle. But I'll be darned if it's not still there, so it would definitely be worth it. I never see any water out in this place. It's the center of a circular driveway area, horseshoe driveway area on a main street.
Yeah, I do have lamb's ear in another area.
Judith is wondering that very cool animal. That is a Highland coo, COO, and it is the cattle breed that they raise in the Highlands of Scotland. And they aren't they? I mean, they are just adorable. And for whatever reason, they are everywhere right now. I walked through, I was going to say Michael's, Hobby Lobby, whatever that store is called, going back to where their fabric paints are. And that took me through the area where they have all of their posters that hang on the walls and their cool signs that hang on the wall. And there were more Highland coos than anything else. They appear to be the beast that is in all of it's probably on people's note cards and everything else this time of year. Highland coo. You see the ring in their nose? Do you know what? Well, I guess I always assume they put the ring in their nose because that's the way that you can hook them up to something and lead them if you need to. But I was talking to a friend about one of the wild onions. They call it ramps. That it really is a terrible weed. And if it gets into your field where your cows are, and he grew up on a farm, he said you had to throw all the milk out. It just made the milk smell so bad you had to throw the milk out. So to get rid of the ramps in the field, he followed the book that we have a book by, name's gone. It's a weed control book, and it's written by a man who grew up on a farm, became an extension agent, retired back into the farm, and he wrote this book on weed control that's heavily into using some of the ways that farmers have done things. And it says that to control ramps, let loose the pigs without the rings in their noses. I said, well, that's why they put rings in pigs' noses, because then they don't root and dig things up so much. If you take the rings out, it doesn't hurt their nose to root. And having watched pigs or pig relatives at the Detroit Zoo, there are, is it the capybaras? I think it's the capybaras. They got a new exhibit ready for them, all this nice sod and landscaping, whatever, and released them. And within 2 days, they had rototilled the entire area. They had just gone through and ripped underneath everything, worse than anteaters for going things. Anyway, rings in their noses. Talk about a Diversion here. Doesn't wild ginger go dormant and disappear in the summer? No, not Asarum canadense is our native wild ginger, and it doesn't go away. What does go away? A lot of the anemonelas and things, but not the ginger. It's a pretty reliable thing for us. Epimedium is good for dry shade when established. Yes, thanks, Barb. It is. It can take. That's one that you got to grow that for 3 years before you can say, oh, okay, now it's finally spreading, and then it takes off. And some of the epimediums are not. I grow Epimedium flavum, which is the yellow flowered one. That one is maybe the best ground cover. A lot of the other epimediums, like Epimedium rubrum and longifolium, and there's a bunch of different species, tend to be a little more sedate than flavum. Ajuga in the dry areas, Jean. She's this is Connie's looking for stuff in the, or Karen was looking for ground covers in dry areas. Yeah, Ajuga is a mint family plant, and they really like the moisture at least part of the time. I haven't started anything from seed yet, but got the lights set up because I've got a couple of packages of seed in the refrigerator that I'm ready to get going. It's always such fun watching things grow. I thought I had lost our person to do. I was going to give up on the person to do our growing and using clematis talk, and she popped up. It's you can lose track of people over the years, and then how do you get a hold of them if you don't have a phone number? So I was putting my feelers out everywhere, and about 2 weeks ago I put out my last feeler. But last night she answered. So we're working on still working on season 7, although we've got the schedule all out there. There are a couple things that, depending on what happens with the people we set up, we might still move a couple of things around. We're looking forward to it, and looking forward to working with a bunch of different people this year, even in some cases several different people on each webinar. So join us if you haven't decided to do that already. We're reading The Bees. That book's not shown here. We're reading The Bees in our book club, and our next meeting is March 9th. March 9th. It's 7 o'clock on a Monday. Just go to our website, and there is a book club link, book club tab on the home page. Just go there, and the link is there to join us. We just have fun, and I think you might like The Bees. It's by Laline Paul. Does that look like a zombie hand or what? I love that leaf. No questions? I don't see any here. Okay, time to think about winter damage. Do you believe it? Beginning of the week, this was there. There was still snow. We had one type of winter damage we had in my yard is that this is the path that goes through here in this way. But because of this fall, a big chunk from the top of one of our 100-foot white pines fell. And there's a white pine back here, and it's across the path. And so my neighbor and his dog have been going around, and I needed to get that stuff out of the way as soon as the snow got out of the way, so that there's less trampling on the gardens. I don't know where these slashes came from. Pay no attention to those, but the circle this is where this branch came down from. When I looked up and found it, this is a double top. Here's another double top where this white pine was broken off, just like this spruce was broken off, and this one, some wind event 15 or 20 years ago cracked them all off at a certain point. And then they grew, side branches became the new top. And those are never as strongly attached to the trunk as the trunk itself is. And over time they grow and push each other apart. And this one pushed each other apart, pushed the other one apart. And if you look up, you can look up like I did and go, well, that's not that far up. That's not that big. It just ripped itself right off of there. But that's about a 30-foot piece. It starts over here and goes over here. And all of that had fallen down from that plant. It landed on top of one of our yews, but yews are real flexible, so I'm not too worried about the yew. Broke some branches of some of the young black cherries and magnolia were letting grow back there, but anyway, had to cut that up. And so I had my chainsaw out this week. Learning something new about tools all the time. I'll get back to tools a little bit later, but learned about my chainsaw and it works so much better now. I was able to cut bigger logs than I'm usually able to cut. Now I have to bundle all that up, and I'm hoping that it doesn't snow again because I still have most of this stash that you're looking at here sitting there, and if it snows on top of it, I'll be stuck with not being able to shovel my driveway clear. It does add up. It always looks like, well, it's not much way up there, but it's a lot way up there. Sonia sent this to us, my daughter Sonia. She said, what could this have been? So that's almost certainly a shrew. Shrews, which are not relatives of mice, but they're mouse-sized. They're an entirely different order of animal. Shrews have to eat constantly to stay alive. Their metabolism is so high, and what they do is these are European brown-lipped snails. I think that's the right name for them. They're not native, but the shrews have certainly learned to eat them. And what they do is drag them over here, and I'm looking, I can't quite see any of them in here, but they chew a little hole in the shell, there might be one right there, and eat the snail out of the inside. They are amazing creatures, shrews are. The chipmunks will also eat snails. I had a friend in my garden with me one time, and I was digging something up right near the patio, and he said, hey, what's that? I said, well, it's a tunnel running through here. I said, something's tunneled down here. So he started following the tunnel because he was curious about what it was. And it was a chipmunk's run. And it had rooms off to the side, and he was excavating them. And we found an entire room jammed full of snail shells. And I thought, Steve and I would sit on the patio and wonder, what is that noise? It would go crack, scratch, 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 crack. And it was the chipmunk scratching away at the shell and then cracking it open and eating the snail. We got friends in all places. That's her dog wondering what it is that's going on there. Shrews do not do this. Shrews do not eat plants. I guess they can eat plants if they're really desperate, but they are insectivores and well, they'll even eat mice. They'll eat anything they can come across. But they do not eat plants. This is voles and rabbits who do this kind of damage, and probably there's a bit of it this winter. You can see the difference in what things can handle the dry through winter. This is euonymus that's dried out. It still looks pretty to me on our arbor here. We just put it on as decoration. But look how the pine has kept its green, and the arborvitae in the foreground here. Lots of different things going on out there that are damaged. This is a euphorbia. I've forgotten the species. I think it's a hybrid of Euphorbia polychroma and something, and it's called Euphorbia ascot rainbow, and the foliage is three colors. Usually it's evergreen, but you can see it didn't make it through the winter here. We didn't really expect it to, not in a raised planter like this. But looking at the base and seeing as much green as there is at the base, I'm not going to cut that down yet. I'm not going to give up on that because there may be live buds at the base of those just under the soil. So I'm going to let those sit for a little bit. You can usually tell when something is really dead and whether the buds are really dead. You can clip one and open up the stem and look inside to see whether it's moist inside or not. There are some people that say, well, if it's green inside, it's fine. It could be green and freeze dried. It needs to be green and moist to be alive. Lavender, we had a problem with the lavender dying back for a couple of years at the library. The raised beds are a little bit higher now, and I'm hoping you might be able to see the white stain here. We're hoping that the salt splash, it's not driving, people don't drive here, so there's not a big splash, it's just a splash from people's feet. We're hoping that it didn't reach the lavender this time. We'll know whether or not the lavender makes it well. This grass, it was our choice and to put at the very edge. This is prairie drop seed, and if we still have damage along the front edge, we'll do a prairie drop seed all along the front edge. Then we can cut the prairie drop seed in the springtime before the heavy rains, which kind of negated, this week it negated. If we cut them before the heavy rains, any salt that lands on the grass comes out of the bed with the grass. But this, was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. It rained. It came down hard yesterday. And so any grass that was protecting your plants by catching the salt may have gotten rinsed clean, and that salt is now in the soil. Darn. Most of the things we just move back from the edge a little bit in order to protect them from the salt. When it's just people walking, when it's bicycles riding and cars going by with the wheels, they spin and throw salt a lot further, even further up over the edge. Sorry. There we go. This is not actually a holly shrub in this bed. It's, what do we have in that bed? Colchicum. I can't remember they're perennials in that bed. They bloom at different times. And we just put some branches of holly in there to give it some interest in the wintertime. And those too will catch salt and we can take them out of there afterwards. But if it was real holly, it probably wouldn't handle the exposure in the wintertime. Beautyberry's still up, and I intend to get that cut down. I thought I'd cut it down this week, but the library, this is our volunteer gardens at the Waterford Township Library, and the library maintenance crew has been stacking all their snow there, and when I cut this beautyberry down, I cut it all the way down to the ground. I don't want to cut it to snow level and then have to come and cut it again, so that will wait. That will wait. Amsonia can come down once that snow is off of there, and it's off of there now today. I'll go on a dry day and cut that down because it doesn't look good anymore. It did look good through most of the summer, but it's pretty broken down now. That's a real problem. White pines, they've really got hit this winter. I think because it was so cold so early in December and then we used so much salt. Not sure. Those trees are, they're probably 50 feet back from the road, but most of that is salt damage. Some years you see them get killed. Yeah, so oops, too late. But if you are using grasses, ornamental grasses that you leave up in the winter as something of a shield from salt, try to get them cut down and out before it rains again heavily. Any questions here? Oh, there's 2 hands up. Oh, I'm sorry. Judith, you go first.
Hi, this is in the chat too, because I wasn't sure I had actually succeeded in raising my hand. So your choice. I can ask it, or you can read it from the chat.
No, you go ahead and ask it. I love having a different voice here.
Okay. I am going to experiment with creeping thyme as a ground cover this year because I have not succeeded with grass or with Vinca major, and the bunnies are something awful. And I am wondering, A, whether I'll just be disappointed and brokenhearted again, and also whether I might be able to start it indoors.
Do you have sun for the time? Because it's gonna
Yes,
then you're not gonna be disappointed in terms of bunnies because they don't eat thyme.
yep.
And
That's why I was interested.
Yep. And you can definitely start it indoors. If you know somebody who has some, because it is evergreen, you can even go and harvest some right now and take all the individual pieces and just stick them into potting mix and keep them
Huh.
moist. And they'll be rooting and ready for you to spread out already. Uh,
Oh,
yeah.
I don't, but I could be the person who could offer it to somebody the next time.
Yeah. Right now our creeping time is all underneath the big snowbanks, but as it melts out, I'll just send you some in the mail. I think I have your address. If I don't, email me your address. We've sent things on. We try not to send invasive things around, but we've sent stuff to Oregon. We've sent it to California. We've sent it to Nevada. We've sent it to Boston. If my sister needed ground cover, and we sent her several boxes of ground cover in Wakefield, in Massachusetts, a while ago, and it was great. She had by the time she got done pulling the pieces apart, she had something like 50 plants, like a whole flat of plants. So I'm more than willing to send some over because we've got extra. So,
That's incredible. Thank you.
oh, you're
Thank
welcome.
you. I'll send it to you. But I can start it indoors too, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
when would I start it?
Right,
Yeah,
once you
for
get
Massachusetts,
yeah, once
6A.
yeah, once you get it, you can put pieces of it outside, but if you start it indoors, you're going to get them rooting it more quickly. Because when you pull thyme apart, each little sprig has its own roots started on it, and what you want is
Yeah.
that to start sprouting out more roots and more side branches.
No, I meant from seed, or is that just a fool's errand?
You know, I I don't know that okay, I know that the time that I have from that we use as a ground cover, I have not seen from seed. They have mother of time from seed, the kind of culinary time, but that's not as good a ground cover as the woolly time or the golden time. And the golden time, I'm not sure comes true from seed. So I'll send you some of these and maybe try some of each and you can tell me what made it. What doesn't. Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, and so there was some. Vicky, you go ahead next.
Well, I was at a garden that I volunteer at, and I noticed in the lawn adjacent to the garden a lot of mold damage that I have never seen before. And I'm wondering, is this winter related and is something I should be concerned about?
It can be winter related. More often, it's a matter of it doesn't take very many moles in an area to do a lot of digging. People don't believe this, but you often have one mole per quarter acre, one, and they do a lot of digging. So it could be that it just happened that a mole moved in, that a mole nearby had a good year reproductively, and moles have spread out a little bit more. It can also be that the ground in that area was was looser, longer. Maybe there was ground cover, maybe it wasn't packed down, and so it didn't freeze as well, and the moles moved into that area. But if you are concerned about moles, they don't bother me in beds most of the time. I've had them tunnel under where we just put annuals in, and they do pop up the annuals, which drives me crazy. But for the most part, they don't really bother me in beds. Where they bother me is in the lawn where people are trying to walk and it becomes very uneven. If you need to control them, March and April is the time to do it, to put the traps out, because they're going to have at least one litter a year, and that's going to be in April. So you're going to get more moles pretty quickly if you let them go through April. And the traps work really well. I've had to trap them before, where you find the runs that keep getting reused. You just walk them down and see which ones get puffed back up the next day, and you just cut out a piece of side, lift it out of the way so that you can find the tunnel. So I lift out the side, I put my hand down, and you can feel the hole that they've dug. Then you put the trap down there and mound the sod back up around it to make it dark. And those harpoon traps work really well. And you can also watch for them actually working. If you know that they're active out there and there's quite a few moles, I've been out in the garden and standing there talking to a client when I said, well, this is mole damage, and I looked over to the side and you could see the ground moving where the mole was working through right there. And if you hit right behind where you see the motion, with the flat of a shovel, or I didn't have a shovel at the time that I was standing with a client, and I just stomped down with the heel of my boot, and I killed it just right there, because they're right below the surface and getting hit hard, they do get killed. So if you're out there a lot, you can do something. One professional exterminator animal control person told me that he would always just set himself out with something to drink and a chair because it was more efficient than coming back and forth and checking traps every day for clients.
Right. And this is in the lawn. So, are the traps, you can rent them or do you have to buy these?
Well, you can buy them just at the hardware
Okay.
store, and the harpoon type traps are just a heavy spring, and you pull up on the spring, and it sets a spike that and it has a little trap plate on either side. When you set that into the hole that you dug, the moles, who are very fastidious about keeping their main runs open, dig through and hit the trap, and the spear spears them. I mean, it just works real well. You just have to identify the runs, the tunnels that they're using every day, and that's where you just kind of mash everything down and come back the next day to see which ones have been furrowed back up again, and that's the one that you put the trap in.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sure. Connie's talking in chat here about the deer ate your epimedium. Wow. Supposedly they don't like epimedium. Almost every list that I've seen of deer resistant plants and rabbit resistant plants, I've looked and said, oh, I've seen them eat that. Especially if they're hungry. Wow. The one thing about epimedium is it will come back if it's only eaten once. So that should leaf back out again. Oak leaf hydrangea, boy, they love hydrangeas, and I've seen them just chew oak leaf hydrangea repeatedly. It'll come back from one eating, but if they keep eating it, that's going to do it in. Rosa Sharon and Spirea ate the tips. Oh, the lilac was, wow. That's a lot of deer damage, that's for sure. Oh, Margie's family is going to the crater of Diamond State Park. My friend Debbie has been there digging. and I've heard the story about the woman who dug her own engagement ring diamond out of there. Um, has anyone been there? Margie, you need to send me an email to remind me that you need Debbie Slentz's email, and you can email her. They've been there and taken a look through there. Cool. Conch. It's a great word, conch. C-O-N-K. Not conch like conch shell, but conch. That's what that kind of fungus fruiting body is called on wood. Okay, I did get out this week. Monday it was still not quite right, but Tuesday was good for pruning. I pruned on Monday afternoon and all day on Tuesday. As the snow was leaving, it was still on the ground when I was doing this, and this part melted out first because these are the paths that I keep shoveled through the yard. And because we walk on those, they're still frozen. But once I moved the snow here, I could dig there. I could have been digging if I wanted to. But I went out to prune, and I got these mystery spots. We all do. So why does that spot underneath the big fir, that's the trunk of a concolor fir, why does that spot melt out its snow before the other things do? I don't know. Same thing with the stuff underneath the edge of one of the white pines. Why does that melt out first? That whole area is all American ginger, and we don't water it all, and it's there all year. So I'm finishing cutting the crabapple. I prune the crabapple twice a year to keep it smaller by half than it wants to be. It's a weeping crabapple. We like the weeping crabapple, but we don't want it to go up and become taller, which is what it will do if we give it a chance. I prune it in July after it's finished blooming, and then I prune it again in winter. In winter, I'm mostly looking to get rid of these guys. That's a water sprout. Water sprouts is from horizontal branches, or in the case of a weeping tree, a branch that trends down, branches that go upright. They generally don't branch, they grow quickly up. This would make the next layer of the tree in no time at all. And I'm looking to get those off. I set up my ladder. That's an orchard ladder there. And I use my pole pruner and I reach into the top of the tree. In some cases, I go into the middle here and stand up in the middle of the tree where I've got a bit of an opening and reach to get those out. But that takes me, usually I put in about 8 hours every winter with getting all of the pieces off of the top. And I'm going to stop my share and show you what I mean by water sprout here behind me. And it's didn't work as well as I hoped it would work to hang a sheet on my book closet wall here, but it's a more solid background to show you this branch. So here is one of the water sprouts. Here's where I cut last year. Right there, I cut that off. And when I cut that off, the branch that was left, this one right here, formed a flowering spur. See that short little bud right there? That's a flowering spur. And there's a flowering spur that formed right there. And that's what you want, is you want to cut it in July in time for more flowering spurs to start close in. But this one on the top there where I don't reach, what it did was it grew. This whole piece is new. The whole thing from here where I cut all the way out is new. And it was there long enough this year, maybe just because it was a long enough growing season, that it has these side branches grew out quite a ways. And they grow, you can see how quickly it grew. This is 1 year's growth. It grew, 4 feet that way and 2 feet this way. It's a healthy enough tree. This branch that was the first one to grow out from where I cut grew spurs. So those are spurs. See the little bud at the end, short branch with buds at the end. Those are flowering spurs. So I have sacrificed that flower. It's not going to flower here, but I don't want it to flower at a place where it's growing higher. So I've cut that off. But this one does more what a water sprout does. It's just grown up. It's fat, and that's not going to bloom. That's just going to be leaves, to a certain extent masking the flower. So this is what I was cutting off. And someone asked about plants that are good for using for wattle. The way to find out is when you're pruning something, bend it over and see if it breaks, and see how water sprouts are good. Water sprouts are good for weaving as wattle too. Another one that I was cutting this week was birch and black cherry. Are pretty flexible plants. Any questions about water sprouts while we're here? I hope you don't have as much work as do with your crab apple as mine. We would just plant the things that are the right size to start with. We wouldn't have to worry about that so much. There? No. Oh yeah, there. Okay. Yeah, we didn't plant this tree. It was here, and one of the only things that was in a reasonable position in front of the house that we could keep, and we like a Louisa crab. So it's worth my while, but very soon I'm going to have to give that up. With my Parkinson's, my neurologist tells me I shouldn't pee on the ladder. Well, we just worry about that as we worry about that. But it's just getting to be a lot more work than I want to do to stand up there with that pole pruner held out in front of me all day long, taking these branches off. Participants. Sorry, I have to open my participants menu back so I can see if there's any hands up. I don't see any hands yet. Okay. Yep, so that's what I have been doing, cutting that back. And no, I've not cut back any of the perennials especially in our wild naturalized area out here. I don't cut that stuff down. I maybe sometimes would cut down this area, but it's much more naturalized ground cover area too. And I did not clean up my branches. People have said that pruning is something that they need help with pruning. I tell people you need help with cleanup. It takes two people to clean up what one person can prune. And I was pruning like mad in order to get pruning done before it started getting wet. I was pruning on Tuesday knowing that it was going to be possible rain on Wednesday, and you don't want to prune when it is wet. So I thought I can clean up branches even when it's wet and cold, but I haven't cleaned them up yet. And that's the one that you just saw. It looks a lot better. And oh, that blue sky was so wonderful on Tuesday. So wonderful. So that keeps it down, because any taller than that, it starts hiding the house. And I've shown you pictures of this where it is hiding the house. Are there any questions? No. Some crocuses are so beautiful. I've planted yellow crocus, there are Dutch crocus. They tend to bloom later than these crocus that you're looking at right now. The Dutch crocus come in purples and whites and kind of striped colors and yellows. And if you want to talk about animals eating them, the crocuses all get eaten, but the yellow ones get eaten first. I have watched as day by day in a mixed group of crocuses, the animals come in and eat the yellow ones first, although they're the same species as the purples and the whites that are mixed in there, and they'll come and eat the purples and whites afterwards. Yellow tastes better, maybe because like delicious apples taste better. They generally don't eat geranium. Does anybody want to report on deer eating geranium? Your dog eats your yellow crocus, Connie. She's so feet. Is it a lab? My labs eat first and ask questions later. Geraniums seem to be pretty reliably not eaten by animals, especially the geranium macrorrhizum, the big root geranium that has a scented leaf. I intended to get my crabapple pruned and also get my blue branch down off of its pole and into a dry place where I could repaint it, because the bark gradually dries and falls off, and the bird's claws bring it off. But I haven't gotten it off yet. My winter pruning weather guidelines. Okay, Judy. It needs my winter pruning time, and I pruned this arborvitae on Monday and Tuesday. My winter pruning is if the temperature is going to be over 30 for at least 24 hours after you prune and while you're pruning, and it is dry while you're pruning, then it's a thaw and you can prune in it. I'd rather have 48 hours after I finish pruning for the branches that are exposed. You'll see exposed branches on these pictures here. For that wood, which was not at the exterior, was not at the outside edge before, and suddenly it's at the outside edge, it takes the cells in that wood 24 to 48 hours to adjust their moisture level to not freeze. So you don't want it to be below about 30 degrees. 30, it doesn't have to be 32, but 30 degrees at night. So that's what I'm looking for, and we had that thaw this week. It started on Sunday night was still cold. Monday night was a little bit cool, but Tuesday was great. It didn't go down below 34, I think, for me. And it was 40 and 45 during the day. I thought I would show you this arborvitae, and you'll see year numbers on the pictures here because I keep screwing up which picture is which. We planted this arborvitae, which we thought was Jantar, and I'm beginning to think now with its growth rate, it is not the variety that we thought we bought. Jantar is a slow-growing pyramidal arborvitae. We planted this in 2016. Might have been the beginning of 2017 or the fall of 2016, but right in there. This is 2019, 3 years into it being there. I said, okay, now we need to prune it because we want to try to keep it that size. And a good pruning time for me for the evergreens is to prune them after they finish growing actively in the summer. So that's late August into September. And you're going to see this one being pruned in September or in a winter thaw or before it breaks bud in the spring. So 3 years afterwards, now we did, I did prune it a little bit in 2019, but 3 years afterwards I went, okay, you really need to be pruned now. Look how much taller it is in 3 years' time. And just to let you know how much taller it was, I overlapped this picture on top of this one, and I've got the brick. See, the brick matches. So it had grown up from here all the way to here, a little over 3.5 feet in 3 years, and that's more than the growth rate is supposed to be on Jantar, but we'll take it. So I start with that, and that was in 2022 in September. I said, okay, you've got to come down, and you're also bellying out over the steps. Not good. You can't do that. We're not going to let you. And you're a little uneven in your shape. See this right here? This is indicating to me it's trying to get a second top. You'll look at that a little bit later. So Steve and I looked at it first. We invited some of you to come out with us. And Steve and I are looking. I said, that's what's going on right there. This is called a competing leader. Arborvitae should have, on its own, would grow as one trunk, and as one trunk would be wonderful. But in the nurseries, they grow them little and they shear them in order to make them bushy for us right away, and so you end up with multiple main branches. And I'm pulling that main branch away, saying, okay, I'm going to take this one out. And Steve says, what about this one? That's the one that's actually making the little wisp at the top. I said, it's got to come out. We got to take that out of there. All it's going to do is make trouble as time goes by and make it thicker and thicker at the top as all that wood starts competing. Because on the inside, where that branch ran along the main trunk, we're not getting any side branches. The branches back there, here's a bit, this is a still alive, still growing green branch back here. That's a branch, not a leaf. All the little tiny, tiny bumps, those are the leaves. Those keep dying back, but there's still buds in there. There's still a chance that if I take that competing branch away from there, as the light reaches these, it'll fill out on that side. So I want to get rid of this extra on the bottom down here, and I want to get rid of the extra at the top. So some of you came, maybe you'll recognize, I see Janet here. Trying to, maybe you can identify, so that looks like Margie and Therese. I probably know more of these names if I think about them for a bit, but people are going up one by one and looking at what Steve and I showed them. We said, here's where there's a competing leader, so people are taking a look themselves so they understand where these things are. And I'm yakking at them about it. So then we're going to take out, I said, okay, we need to come down. This is the height that we want it to be. That's why that string is sitting there. We're just marking where we want it to be. I said, so here's where we want the top to be. And that means I'm going to need to take this guy right out of there. This guy is one of those pieces. It's a main branch that's gone straight up. So I'm going down to where that came from, where it started growing off of the main trunk, and I'm going to take it right off of there. Which leaves me with, see the top right about at that point? It's deformed the top a little bit. It's not such a tight spire because I've taken some things right out of there, but we're not going to worry about that too much. The plant will take care of itself there. And after taking the top, and now you can see it's just now it's just one trunk, and we can see through it a little bit, which is not a problem. As soon as it begins to grow, this is in September, as soon as it starts to grow next April, it's going to grow out from those little bits that are now in the sun, and they fill in no time. So once we take the top and shorten it, then we come down the whole side, shortening all the side branches to make it narrower all the way down and keep the shape. And how much we take them in depends on the growth rate. So you can see the color of the wood is different here than here. See here, it's begun to get darker spots on it, like darker spots here. So 1 year's growth here. That was the year before, and it's now growing more bark. Down here is growing more bark. So we're looking at about that much of a growth rate, which means that everything that we cut off the sides, we have to cut at least that much off to keep it back for 1 year. And we would rather I would rather, when I'm pruning things like this arborvitae, as opposed to a fast-growing crabapple, I'd rather prune it every 2 years. So I'm going to say, I want to cut this back 2 years growth. I'm going to cut off this part and this part back to let these branches grow out back here. So everybody's looking as we take out main branches, as we go down and cut things back. This is the main branch Steve was pulling out. I said, yeah, that's going to leave a bit of a gap for a while, but if I leave that there, I will year by year by year have more and more of bare area in here that won't grow new wood, and more of a lump on the side where that branch is growing its own side branches. Because this is what we're looking at. That's what we're taking out, is something that has no growth on this side. It's full on one side, and on the inside it doesn't have any branches. And those are the ones that are most likely to come out. So you can see there's a wiggle to it now, because we took out a branch there and a branch down here, but it's still overall got the shape that we want it to have, and it'll fill back in. So that's what we cut it down to, with its new top just sticking up right there. And that was in 2022, and we left it there. Almost the same as it was in 2019. It's still it's come out further, and we may not be able to get it back completely off of that step anymore. And this is now. Now I should have cut it in 2024, because we cut it in 2022, but I didn't. I told the owner that he should, and he says that he did, but he didn't, obviously, because here's where it was down here, and now it's up there. So I've got my orchard ladder set up, and I'm going to cut it down below the top of that orchard ladder. The trunk is there, the main trunk, and it's thick, but it's got growth all over on the inside of it. And it's still bellying over the steps, but not too much now, not too much worse. And I cut the main trunk back. So I've cut the main trunk back to just below, to about 1 year or 2 years growth rate, 5 or 6 inches below where I want it to be. I haven't yet cut the side branch out that grew up past it. So here's the trunk that I've cut. I'm leaving this to be the new top. This one right here, I'm going to follow the rest of the way down and take that branch out, and over on the side, I'm going to follow that branch down and take it all the way out. I don't want a whole bunch of wood building up here. I want one trunk with one end, because I want it green all the way around, like you see here, and that's what I took off the top. And after I took it off, I took that end off with the loppers, and then I cut with a saw. The loppers often, the trunk will rip some, and so I need to have a clean, undamaged cut. So I took off this second chunk. So there I am down. I've still got that side branch sticking up. Now I've taken the side branch off. There's my new top. And if you look, you can see through up here now. And that's okay. That light is now getting into the little branches that are left, so that they can grow and fill out right close to the trunk. And now it's work your way down the side, shortening all the branches and trying to keep that nice a pyramidal shape that we like, that narrow pyramid. And if you look, you can see that we're coming back off the step some and leaving those to grow. And they will grow. Those are on the inside, down near the bottom. As I went down, I'm shaking out old leaves. These leaves and branches are the ones that fall, that die back and fall and get stuck in the interior because it's gotten too shady in there, and so those branches have given up the ghost. So as you work down your way down, you just kind of rattle the plant and shake the leaves down, because I want light to get to these. I don't want them covered with debris. Those are going to grow. Every one of those little tiny buds, they take off like crazy. So I've taken off a lot of plant as I went along. You can still see that part that kind of bellies in where I took the big branch out in 2022. But it's now staying in size. That's where that big branch came out. And by the way, arborvitae is a great wood to use for bending from branches. It lasts forever. 20 years later, the wood is still there, and it's totally bendable all of the time. Okay, because there's no branches where they're against each other, where one big branch like this is against another, because there's no branches there, in the wintertime, these are the pieces that flop outward and drive people crazy, because the weight of the snow on those branches out there is so heavy it pulls them outward. And even when the snow drops off that side, there's no weight of snow then on this side to pull it back this way, to make it lean the other way. So these competing leaders are the reason that your arborvitaes become disshaped. It's not the wrong they get out of shape. With one trunk, they might bend, but once they drop the snow load on that side, they stand themselves back up again. So empty on one side. Now, I could take that branch, I'm leaving that branch to become the new tip. I could take that branch and take a piece of hemp, some string that will degrade over time, and I could tie it upright, but it's going to come upright. As the sap rises in the spring, that sucker is going to come straight upright, and so I'm not worried about it. Diane's asking about the pruning and dry for 24 to 48 hours in addition to above 30 degrees night and day. Yes, you do not want that wood. You saw thank you, Diane, I meant to point that out to people. I don't want that big chunk there where I cut and left that out in the open. That wood is not ready to go to below freezing. It has too much water in it, and it'll break cells and it'll die back further, maybe far enough back to kill the new top that I've got started. So yes, you want it to be above 30 degrees, preferably above 32 degrees, for 24 hours to 48 hours after you finish pruning. So I need a warmish day, and then I need the night to be warm, and that's generally an overcast night, and then I need the next day to be warmish too. Okay, so 2022 up at the top of the stem, then we took out main branches, which was a major thing. To get it down to one trunk was a major issue. And now we're back down to this again, and we can keep it there for another, and I'll probably just go back in 2 years, because Kurt's not going to do it himself. I'd rather that it stayed littler and pointier, and I've let it get a little bit higher, but it's still now within my reach at the top of a simple ladder, and it's still within the reach then of the owner to be able to put his Christmas lights on that from the porch. And that's what size plants should be. They should be the size we want them to be. Stink bug climbing around on the succulents here. Has anybody got a question? How will new growth shape itself from the tip of the shortened leader? It will still come to a tip. Yes, the growth is so directed to the tops of plants that the tip, whatever is furthest from the furthest above ground, the tip gets to grow first, and as it grows, it produces chemicals that tell the rest of the things below it that they're subordinate and how to grow. So even though it's a little bit bent this way, as it grows, it's going to grow itself straight upwards. It's amazing how quickly they turn themselves up. That's how those big trees that in my backyard, where the top fell off of the 30-foot top fell off, that's how that new top formed. It was a side branch, and the top of the tree broke, and the side branches turned themselves up and just went straight up along the trunk. There's our marmorated stink bug. marmorated for the mottled pattern on its back. Aren't they cute? So many kinds of fungus and conchs and mushrooms and algae. While I was there, I said, you know, this dwarf white pine, this is a Pinus strobus, our native white pine, Pinus strobus nana. It's just the little, nana means little, dwarf white pine. And it used to be like this 4 years ago. And I said, you know, you're getting kind of big. And I like you irregular, but I don't like you too irregular. That's 2022. That's what it looks like now. So, come on, Janet. So I took, see this branch is a little bit, I took that off. I just took a few branches off that are sticking out further than the outline that we want that plant to be in. Just about that much. And each branch I cut to just above where the green branch comes off. So I cut right, and there were side branches coming off there, because it's not going to grow from a cut in the middle of that wood. It's only going to grow from tips that are green. So that's what I left on it, tips that are green. See, it's been cut, and everything on the outside edge is not brown wood, it's green tips, and those are what are going to grow. Okay, anything more? Let's see what time we get. Oh my gosh, it's 8 o'clock. It's time for us to go. Let's see, what else did I have? I think I still have tools to go here. Just to let you know, this is the time you get your pruners cleaned up. It's so much easier to prune with clean pruners that don't have sap built up on them, and that are oiled, and that you sharpen them with a honing stone. Judy Graham, if you're here, can we bring people to the Wild Ones meeting? There's a Wild Ones meeting coming up middle of March, and we're doing a tool care there. There may be some others coming up that I don't know about, but these are Paul and Priscilla Needles pruners that they bring, along with all the cool stuff that they bring to work with. And we all just bring our stuff, and there's always enough stuff for people to use. Kathy brought her, I think it was Kathy, brought her shovel, and we cleaned it up first to get rid of the rust. Always clean the rust off before you start sharpening, because rust, if you drag bits of rust into the microscopic little scoring that you do when you sharpen, it seeds the rust in. So you clean the rust up first. We did that with oil. And then with a file, or in this case, I brought a grinder with me, we put an edge on the spade. Most spades and shovels do not come with an edge, and it's amazing how much easier it is to dig things if you put a bit of an edge on them and sharpen them that way. Root slayers, each one of these teeth, or a saw, each tooth is a saw and needs to be sharpened with in this case, a little rat tail file. Not my preferred occupation for the winter is sharpening all those individual teeth, but that's what you do with that. And Sue Gruba reminded us that what she uses to cut things down in the spring, like the shrubs, the beautyberry and the butterfly bush and whatever, is a reciprocating saw, a sawzall. So the saw blade goes in here and it goes back and forth. She says it's important to know that you should be getting this saw, the 5 teeth per inch, works really well for all the things that you'd be cutting. 5 teeth per inch and a reciprocating saw. My only concern with the reciprocating saws and a lot of the power tools, like the chainsaw that I use as a battery, is it puts a lot of weight on your hands, but it sure makes the cutting easier. If you're going to be cutting things down, someone was asking about being careful about the bees. I think that was Irina the other day at book club. Where do bees overwinter? Our native bees. That you know about bee hives, and bees are in their hives over the winter if they're the honeybees. But we're talking about our native bees. For the most part, our native bees have laid their eggs and made spaces for their young and given them food to eat for the next year, and so the bees exist as the larval developing state over the winter in the ground or in hollow twigs, or but some of them, now I forgot which ones. Some of them, this is the leaf cutter bee. Some of our native bees, carpenter bees are in the holes, will be just below ground level at the base of things like grasses and perennial plants. So cutting things down all the way to the ground might expose them more to the weather. These are leafcutter bees. I think they are the coolest bees. They cut these little shapes out like this. That's out of a red bud. One day in September, which would be the time you find it. I'm not sure why I was lifting up the stones at Sonia's. I was lifting up the stepping stones. Maybe I was chasing a weed root underneath there. But as I lifted up the stones, I found underneath these. See that right there? There's where the stone had flattened things, and then there's spaces between. And in the spaces between, here are these neat leaves all tucked in just perfectly. Each section here, these leaves are knitted together, and there's a little top glued onto the top of them, and inside there's a larvae, and also some nectar, pollen, and I'm not sure what else is put in there as food. So the larvae of the next carpenter bee generation is developing in there over the winter, and they'll emerge from there in the springtime. So if you want to be careful for the native bees, then leave some of the litter on the ground, but don't worry, they're not on the plants themselves. They're down in the ground or in hollow twigs or in the ground just below surface level. I have a note here from Sue that we'll talk about in a minute with questions. It's my little cat, netted iris, called Catherine Reynold. It's a beautiful iris. She says, we have any suggestions for something prickly, some tree or shrub, because there's a lot of louvered glass windows on the garage. Some of the best prickly shrubs to keep people from getting up close to your windows in your house are the mahonias, the Oregon gray pollies. They can be vicious plants. Some of them, there's one that you recognize when you see it that it's related to barberry. It is not, however, one of the invasive ones. Is Japanese mahonia. So you might want mahonia is Mahonia. Take a look at the mahonias. They're pretty vicious. And you're in Washington D.C., so you could probably be growing what's the orange? Somebody want to help me with the orange plant? It's called what orange? It's in the citrus family. I can't think of what its name. It's just a vicious. It's got vicious thorns on it. It's very pretty and smells nice when it blooms. Send me. I can't remember who asked about that just now. It rolled past me. Sue, if you send us an email so that I have your email to get back. I don't have your emails. I only have your names here. Speaking of which, if anyone knows the Ron who's in book club, I don't know what Ron that is, and I can't find just a Ron on my list to send him the book club notices. But send me something, Sue, so that when I remember the name of that orange, something orange, it would be a good one. What else could go there? What else is prickly, you guys, that people don't want to walk through? And we don't want to give somebody barberry because it's just such a nasty invasive plant when it gets going. It's funny how many things I mean, there are some great roses, but right next to a house is not a great place for roses. They don't get enough sun on the backside. Oh, firethorn, pyracantha. Any of the pyracanthas would be good there. Pyracantha and mock orange. No, mock orange is the shrub that smells sweet. I'm going to have to think about what the heck that orange's name is. I'll never look at bees the same way, says somebody here. Since Margie's reading the book in our book club, The Bees. Now, it is a fictionalized book. It's a novel set in a beehive. And some of the things in there I'm told by beekeepers, no, that wouldn't happen. But some of them are things that do happen. I mean, that's the way that bees manage to live together in a colony, and it is pretty eye-opening. Thank you, Carol. Pyracantha is different. Poncirus, thank you, Priscilla. Yes, Poncirus, Poncirus. And I've seen a couple of people grow it here in areas that are protected, so like down in Dearborn, kind of protected enough that you can call it Zone 6. But for certainly in Washington D.C., Poncirus would be there. Poncirus what? Thank you so much, Poncirus. No, of our the mock orange that common name will throw you off. Lock Orange's Philadelphus, and it smells great, but it doesn't have any thorns on it. Wouldn't be good. Quince, Margie, you're right. Quince is another good one. Although quince, unlike the Mahonia and the Poncirus, quince is going to sucker, and I've seen people end up with big areas of quince once it starts suckering and carrying on. You are welcome for the ideas. You're welcome to join us anytime on a Friday, or join us for our webinars. You support our website when you do that. And we will be back. Oh, click Janet. There we go. Stink bug again. So we'll end this Free for All Friday. Our weekend walkabout wraps up on March 7th with planting trees, why, where, and how. And actually, I think it's where, why, and how. I keep putting that in the wrong order. We'll be back next Friday for Free for All Friday number 68. If you've got questions during the week, send them to us, because it helps me gear up to what we're going to write about rather than just what Steve and I are doing at the time. I'm glad you were here, and I will see you again soon. Yep, clean the tools right now, Diane. It's right. I have to remind myself to do that. I take mine out and go, oh my gosh, look at my loppers. They are just disgusting. Yeah. It was better when I worked for other people. When I worked for other people, I cleaned my pruning tools before I pruned each time I got to somebody's house. In my own house, I just keep putting them away, and I should clean them before I put them away. You take care, Jean. I hope that you are feeling well and are good and healthy this year. Talk to you later, everybody.